Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Going to talk to Marc Krasney. He's attorney extraordinaire and a regular contributor on The Price of Business. And Marc, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Kevin. How are you doing?
Doing great. Krasney Law Firm, that's Krasney, lawfirm.com. Tell us a little bit about your practice before we get into our topic today.
Yeah, sure. We started 8 years ago or so acting as a in-house counsel for companies who can't afford to hire a specific full-time lawyer in-house. And so clients just contract that out to us for a monthly fee. We handle many of their business decisions. And most recently, the exciting thing our firm has done is transition into also doing some personal things, just because it's sometimes a little more exciting. And once that business relationship is established, there's trust, those clients have personal issues too. So we're kind of a one-stop shop for all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you have for us as far as the topic today?
What I was thinking about is something that most of your clients or listeners don't think about, which is their business, the assumed name that typically they operate under, which is different than their corporate name, and then the whole alter ego issue. Most companies don't even think about it, but it can really bite them in the tail because the issue could bring up personal liability. And so thinking that thought process out, many people say are involved in the service industry or making a widget. They start that new business, they get their certificate from the Secretary of State, and their widget Inc. Well, good for them. They go on down the road and they're doing just great, except that their business card might have a different name. They might choose to operate as something else. They'll put something on their letterhead that refers to a company that doesn't 100% mirror or match what they have filed with the state. How many people do you know in business who do that?
Quite a few. And so essentially you're talking about the, they want to just be able to cash checks so they get a DBA, but you're so exposed to so much liability.
Yeah, some people don't get a DBA under their company. A lot of people will just operate a DBA under their personal name, and that doesn't bother me so much because there's already personal liability there. They haven't created a new entity so as to get away from personal liability. It's those people who start a company to get away from personal liability, but then forget to actually operate their business under that corporate umbrella, that corporate veil. And so you'll hear that phrase from other people who say, oh, well, we lawyers were able to pierce the corporate veil because corporate formalities weren't observed. And so if you, the widget company, doesn't actually go by the name you set up at the Secretary of State, you've opened up a huge can of worms, a field day, we'll say, for a plaintiff's lawyer in the event there's a lawsuit. And so you subject your shareholders to personal liability because you basically told the world, we are going to disregard the corporate entity and do business as whatever that name is, and it's separate from the name we filed with the Secretary of State. That's a huge pitfall that I would say a huge portion of your listeners get involved in.
Yes.
And so the second part of the story would be alter ego. When a plaintiff's lawyer, say, pierces the corporate veil, removes that corporate shield, we're now going to go after assets. The alter ego argument would mean this other entity, this other name you've done business under, they have assets. You personally, you have assets. You've opened up a couple other pocketbooks for that plaintiff's law firm to go after.
Wow. It's very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous.
And what are the reasons why people do this? Ignorance? Is it because of convenience? They just want to get things done quickly? Kind of give us a list of some of the reasons why such nefariousness, innocently, but nonetheless, nefariousness takes place.
I think most of the time it's just we didn't think about it. Most of the time it is, I'm the owner of the company. I'm busy making money, trying to make payroll. I have 9,000 other things to worry about. Never once thought that the name on my letterhead or my invoice, my business card would matter. That's what most people think. And usually it's going to be okay, but there's going to be that time. And most businesses, I say, get involved in at least one lawsuit in their lifetime. And hopefully it's not an issue, but many times it is.
Is that anecdotal? Is that statement about the likelihood of being in a lawsuit, is that anecdotal, or have you read that?
No, that's just my experience. I've been in corporate law now for 16 years, and I typically tell my clients, you're going to get involved in at least one lawsuit. Now, it could be regarding the actual widget, the service, an employee matter, or something. But I imagine if you did a poll of your listeners, I would say that's probably on the low end, but at least one is true per the lifetime of the entity.
Mm-hmm. So going forward, this goes back to what you're all about in the first place, which is about prevention, rather than mitigation. But it sounds like from day one, a business owner really needs to take everything that he or she has that's supposed to be of an entity nature to someone like you and just do an inventory.
That's a good point. And when you are starting the entity, I like to sit down with the client, find out what assets we're talking about so as to discuss liability protections. And then in the event there is an issue, I'd want to also know, hey, what other names do you choose to do business under? A lot of people will say, hey, I started a company name, Kevin Price Inc. 30 years ago. Okay, I don't care. And perhaps over time, you haven't done anything with it, but you've kept it active. Well, okay, great. Since you already have that open, a lot of times I might just say, if you're going to start a new company, whatever it's called, just do a DBA of that company name you've registered with the Secretary of State. When you miss that step, it's filing the assumed name with the Secretary of State and also in the county clerk's office where you do the business, you miss that step. That's when you open yourself up to all those liability issues we talked about before. Mm-hmm. And really, it's a simple step, a couple of filing fees, and little or no time. And I promise it's going to save dividends down the road.
Yeah. One of the things I always like to ask you about is kind of a state of business out there, with new businesses being formed or old businesses closing or looking at bankruptcy and other conflict. What do you see from a legal front on how the economy is doing in the Houston area today?
I would say it's slowing down. A lot of my clients in the service industry and are affected by the oil business. And it seems that each day there's a new oil company filing for bankruptcy. And when that happens, my clients who are in a service industry are affected by other people upstream. And so it just trickles on down the road. And so I think things slow down, and it's starting to feel like, not 2008, but, somewhere in there where business owners are being a little more cautious on spending, hiring, investing, things like that.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. Krasney Law Firm, Krasney, lawfirm.com. Make sure you check it out. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com. And this is The Price of Business.